I wanted to just say before we get started, folks, on Sunday, this show is going to be 2 years old.
Happy birthday.
A little toddler,
to
a terrible toodler. And also, when we first launched, there was a Charlie XCX album in the headlines. There's about to be another one, I think this weekend. Isn't that crazy? How are we in the same, creative lane as Charlie XCX, one of the greatest pop stars of all time?
I mean, she's definitely a listener.
Oh, 100%.
She likes to keep tabs on what's happening in Washington state politics.
Why else would she have tweeted Kamala is brat? Is Ferguson brat? That would be my question for her. Ferguson's not brat.
I don't. I think we would have heard by now. That would be a big headline.
You heard it here first, folks. Ferguson is not brat. It's time for Sound Politics.
Welcome to Sound Politics from KUOW. I'm Libby Denkmann.
And I'm Scott Greenstone. And last week, I went to the official kickoff campaign to save the millionaires tax. We've covered on this show before that there's an effort to kill the millionaires tax before people even start paying it. That repeal effort is sponsored by Brian Haywood, and it will appear on ballots this fall officially. It's initiative number 645.
Yeah, and the effort to preserve this income tax on high earners, the millionaires tax, that campaign is calling itself No on 645. These names need to be a little catchier.
It's not so catchy. I mean, you can't. 2 years ago, the Democrats named it Defend Washington, just the general vote no on Haywood's initiatives. That was better. I don't know. This campaign is still ramping up. They have got millions already in donations and pledges from unions. There were labor leaders at the event. There were kids at the event to kick off this campaign. Of course, Governor Ferguson was there.
Sure.
And since that kickoff, the campaign has been rolling out the endorsements. City council members, mayors, Rick Steves, even Ken Jennings of Jeopardy wants to pay the millionaires tax. And you know that means I got to play the clip.
What clip?
The Comrade Ken clip from, I think, 2004.
Businessmen for 1,000, please.
Answer. Daily double. We have the most money with 9,200.
I'm not really crazy about the category. I think I'll wager 1,000, please.
You don't like businessmen?
I hate them all.
Oh, good. All right.
Come the revolution, we're going to string them up.
Whoa. Hello.
Trebek is both excited to have somebody that's such a loose cannon and also terrified, I think. Ken Jennings, Seattle's most famous socialist Mormon.
But that list of people who want to save the millionaires tax, all those socialist Mormons and Rick Steves and nerdy white guys and not so white nerdy people and not so nerdy white people, whatever.
That about covers it.
There are a lot of names. There are a few conspicuous names missing, like any recent Washington governor other than Ferguson. In fact, a few of Washington's former governors have recently voiced concerns not just about taxes like this one, but about the Democrats' spending. And I should say, these former governors are Democrats themselves.
We're going to dive into those concerns coming up after a break. Back with Sound Politics, and this week we are looking at Washington State's budget deficit carousel. For the last few years, we've been spinning around on this kind of ride. The state's finances have been in the red, and Democratic leadership has to scramble to get us out of the mess, only to spin around, start all over again the next year, and we're in the red again.
Yeah. Republicans obviously talk about this a lot. Now, former Democratic governors are joining in.
To talk about this and how we got here and what it can tell us about where the state and the Democratic Party might be headed, we're joined by our Olympia reporter, Sarah Mises-Tan. Sarah, welcome back to Sound Politics.
Good to be back.
So, Scott, before we have Sarah walk us through our state's fiscal woes, why don't you set the stage for us? I mean, the debate about spending in Olympia, this is not new.
Yeah.
But it's got more attention this summer with a couple of unexpected voices joining in.
Headline-grabbing names. Yeah, let's start with last week. Former Governor Gary Locke appeared at an economic summit hosted by the business community. Locke is a Democrat. He led the state from 1997 to just the beginning of 2005. And here's what he had to say about modern budgeting today as he sees it.
Olympia has to have more budget discipline, and be more realistic. It's always better to have more money than you expected. Then you can, put that money into one-time programs or even expansion of programs. But when you start creating all these programs on false economic assumptions or unrealistic economic assumptions, then you're going to have a huge fight in the future.
It's surprising to hear a Democrat talk like this about a state government that's controlled by their own party, right? I mean, Locke's a Democrat. Democrats have majorities in both the state House and Senate. And, this is somebody who's criticizing the direction that they're taking the budget in. Kind of remarkable to hear Democrats ripping other Democrats like this.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, Governor Locke led the state a long time ago when the Democratic Party was a lot different. But this is not the first time we've heard this from a former Democratic governor either. Locke's successor, Christine Gregoire, who led the state from 2005 to 2013, just the beginning of 2013, said something similar at another state business forum back in May. Here's some tape from her appearance there.
We don't really have an income problem. We have a spending problem. And we're answering... And we're answering it by stacking one more tax, one more rule, one more regulation. And the one thing that the business community doesn't need is that lack of predictability. That's how businesses grow. That's how they thrive. That's not healthy for our business community at all.
So I just want to underline this really quick. Neither of these governors have said, I'm against the millionaires tax. Vote, yes to repeal it.
They're saying basically that there is an underlying spending issue that is not going to be fixed by a tax, a new, set of revenue, that it's about the decisions that the legislature is making that have to be course corrected.
It threatens to sort of shift the narrative. And just for the record, I also reached out to our last governor before Ferguson, Jay Inslee, who has not publicly endorsed the millionaires tax yet. I don't have a response as of this taping. I emailed Tuesday. I hear he may have something public next week, but I don't know.
Interesting. So let's bring in Sarah here. Sarah, can you tell us how we got to this point? I mean, I do want to note that Locke was governor when the dot-com bubble burst at the end of the 90s, in the start of the 2000s. That burst created a recession in Washington state and nationwide, and Governor Locke and the legislature had to take an axe to the state budget at that time to keep things balanced. So maybe part of his criticism, his lens, is coming from that experience. Governor Gregoire was in her administration during the Great Recession. So two very different economic pictures from where we are today. Our state economy has slowed a bit, though, and job growth is cooling off. Inflation is higher here than in other states. But we're not in like a recession similar to the situation that Gregoire and Locke were in when they were in office. Inslee presided over a real boom time in the economy, but the capital gains tax and long-term care taxes became law under him. So Sarah, tell us what's going on with the state budget right now that has created such alarm with two of these former governors.
Yeah. So, I guess just to set the stage, the state budget has been in the red the past few years, even if we are not technically in a recession. And it's been in the red by billions of dollars. That's billions with a B. And it's looking like next year we're going to see that same problem come up again. The legislature is required by law to balance the budget, and Democrats have been hesitant to make cuts to programs. 2 years ago, Governor Ferguson said he didn't want to raise new taxes to help balance the budget, but the legislature created a large package of new taxes, and the governor signed that. And last year, Democrats created that historic income tax that will take 10% of household incomes over $1 million. Again, that's the millionaires tax that you mentioned at the top of this show. And about half of that revenue from that tax is going to go to specific programs, and about half is going to just go into the general state budget to get used wherever it's needed to keep core government services operating.
Sure. And we've even seen that sometimes governments will raid those special programs to cover budget gaps. Seattle's been doing that with the Jumpstart tax, which is supposed to go towards affordable housing, but the city is using it to plug its budget hole. The state has done that as well with the capital gains tax and with the cap and trade carbon program. There doesn't seem to be much appetite for cutting programs. There has been some cuts, but the Democrats, are looking at other ways to kind of plug things.
Yeah. Republicans are usually the ones calling for cuts, and Democrats try to avoid cutting programs. Instead, like you said, they'll move money around to cover different holes in the budget. But program cuts are
there have been some cuts, we should say. But I was talking to someone who was kind of frustrated with Locke. Someone who works on the no on 6 or is on the no on 645 side of the aisle, frustrated with Locke, who said, ask him what he would cut. Like, it's easy to say budget responsibility, priorities of government. It's hard to say cut X program, especially for a Democrat.
I mean, I was looking at the TK, the transition to kindergarten program that Democrats did cut 25% of its budget. It's losing 2,000 seats. And the superintendent of public instruction is, really ringing the alarm about this, about the effects of this on kids who really need that program. So it's like every cut you make is going to have its constituency that is pointing out the needs for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's always, that's the problem. When you bring up cuts, people say which cuts, and then, especially campaigning politicians running for office say, they get really, really vague. We did ask Locke and Gregoire to come on the show. Neither one could make it today, just, to put that out there.
So, Scott, Sarah talked about the millionaires tax that is supposed to come into effect soon. I think the first revenue collection isn't till 2029. Yeah. So is the revenue from that tax really going to fix the state's budget problems?
That is a really, really tough question. I think it's hard, to think about when we don't know the economic forecast years out, right? And whether or not the state's economy and the nation's economy will keep shrinking, or if it will start growing at a higher rate again. I think that the danger here, just to turn to the politics side of it and get out of the budget, the danger here that Locke is pointing out and that Gregoire is pointing out is if you tell voters, don't cut education, don't cut X or Y, that's the slogan that No on 645 is starting with. Vote no, don't repeal the millionaires tax, don't cut education. And voters say, okay, we don't want to cut education. And they save the millionaires tax. And then the legislative session comes around in January.
And there are cuts.
And there are cuts, as Ferguson has said there may be, as there have been for years, because Democrats did a bad job, budgeting. Are voters going to say, wait a second, I voted no to cuts?
It's a trust issue.
Yeah, and Democrats have gotten away with that for years because voters here don't see any alternative, right? They don't really like Republicans very much, and there's no real third party.
So are Democrats in Olympia starting to listen to these concerns about overspending and taxes, Sarah? I mean, not just former governors, but, people who are currently in office and in charge of this stuff.
Yeah, I would say clearly Ferguson is concerned about the business community and business interests. He's looking to show folks in the business community that he's listening. He recently convened a governor's economic development council to help advise him on how the state can be better to businesses and be more business friendly. So certainly, I think it's a gesture that he's listening. We'll see where that goes, though.
That's the one with like Amazon and Microsoft and T-Mobile, these big employers who are advising him on, economic strategy, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Although, interestingly, someone did tell me that the business council that he convened feels very old business. It doesn't actually include any startups or AI founders or anything like that. So
that's interesting. I also noticed, I was at a Seattle City Council media availability this week where Councilmember Bob Kettle, who represents downtown Seattle and a few other neighborhoods, he was talking about this more in the sense of we keep raising taxes on, just regular, forget about the millionaires tax. We keep raising taxes just on regular Seattleites. The city council just put through a transit tax, a sales tax to help fund transit. Folks are still voting. Voters here are going to decide on the library levy on August 4th. We have really leaned heavily on these levies and these sales taxes, and we are almost at our limit in the city of Seattle. So there are city council members who, and I think electeds, who are sort of trying to raise the alarm, but it's unclear when you ask them, okay, so what should we do? Vote no on the library levy? It's like, nobody wants to say no to libraries. It's this kind of liberal problem we've gotten ourselves into.
Yeah. I mean, that's why it's been so difficult for the legislature to make these decisions on cuts, and why a lot of people say, as we look at the future, the solution is to ask more from the business community, more from the wealthy. The question is, what's the limit, and when does that start to break down? Sarah Meisestan is KUOW's state government reporter. Sarah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And Scott, I guess that's it for Sound Politics today.
I guess that's it for Sound Politics today. I'm Scott Greenstone. Our editor is Kat Smith. Our producer is Hans Anderson.
I'm Libby Denkmann. This show, it happens because of you, because of your support. Please.
Huge intake of breath.
I know.
This show.
It's the way to, how do I say this in a different way every week? But it's true. We are a nonprofit news organization at KUOW. The reason you're able to listen to this is because somebody else gave at KUOW.org. And the way to give to this show is KUOW.org/politics.
Can I bring this back to the Ken Jennings thing from the beginning? If you already give, make it a daily double. Make it, maybe think about doubling your support if you make more money now or something like that than when you first started giving. Whatever you're able to give, we appreciate it so much.
Thank you.